Good evening, everyone. Good evening, friends. Right, let us start our session. So, welcome back to our sessions on Python for AI. Today, we are going to start a new topic. So, as part of the schedule, we have successfully completed data types. Right? So, data types concept was being done. Just give me a minute. Yep. So data types topic, under data types, we have covered all the 14 data types, right? So the fundamental category, then followed by str, list category, then set category, dict as well as none type category. So in total, we have discussed all the 14 types of data types. So friends, whoever is joining for the first time, just consider subscribing our channel because we are going to come up with amazing content in the future as well, right? So in this today's session, we are going to understand a new topic. It is typecasting. Okay. So we are going to understand a new topic. It is typecasting. Right. So what exactly is typecasting? Typecasting means it is the process of conversion where one possible data type gets converted to other type. That is called typecasting. Okay. So I repeat, typecasting is nothing but the process of converting one type to other type is called typecasting. And in Python, we have 5 fundamental types of typecasting techniques. They are int, float, bool, complex, and str. So we use all these different types of functions, okay, and we perform typecasting. Clear? So let me start with the first function, int, and we'll also parallelly understand examples for each and every function, right? So the first function is int. So we use the int function for converting any possible type value into int type. So if you have a float type data, okay, assume if you have a float type data. So I can convert this float type data into int type using int function. Then apart from float, what if I have a bool value? Okay, if I have a bool type value, can I also convert it? Yes. I'll just use the same function int and I can perform the typecasting. So in short, just we are performing typecasting. So let us look at the syntax. Within the int function, within the function, we have to pass the value. Whatever the possible value that we are trying to convert has to be passed inside the function. So it might be float, it might be bool, or it might be complex as well as str. Whatever it might be, right? So let me start with float. I'll take float value. What are we doing in line number 1997? What are we doing in line number 1997? I'm going to store a float value. What is the value? It is 10.23. So the value has decimal values, right? It has floating values. So obviously, float type will be used to store this data. In order to store 10.23 in a variable, in an object A, PVM assigns float type. Yes, we are creating a variable okay, in which we are going to store 10.23, where float type will be used to store this value, right? So let me execute line number 1997. Done. Yep. Focus on the variable explorer. So the name of the variable is A. Then the type is float. So float type is being used to store the value 10.23. Clear? Then what are we doing in line number 1998? 1998. I'm going to print the value. So I'm going to print the value that is present inside A, object A. Along with it, we are also going to get the type of A. So which returns the address. Which returns the address in the memory. So let me execute 1998. So this will print me A, the value that is present inside A, as well as, I'm going to get just the data type is what it is going to return. My bad. Yes. Then the float value that we have stored in A, I'm going to convert it into int value. So I'm going to use int function. I'll just follow the syntax. What does the syntax say? Int of the value. Which value it is? It's a float value which got stored in object A, variable A. Okay, so I'm passing the value inside the function, int function. Okay, so when we execute line number 1999, will the float value gets converted to int value? Yes or no? Yep, it will convert, the float value that we have gets converted to int value. So 10.23 becomes, what happens if I execute line number 1999? So this is going to create, a int value which gets stored in object B. In object B, what value got stored? It is a int value. It is 10, right? So 10.23 has been converted to 10. Let me also print the value that is present inside B along with its type. So this will return me 10 followed by int. Making sense? So in short, I took a float value. Okay, the float type value got converted to int type value using int function. That is nothing but typecasting. That is nothing but typecasting. In the same way, can I also do it on a bool value? Bool type? Yes. Even if you take a bool type data, okay, even we can convert bool type data into int type data. So which value are we going to take in line number 2003? Which value are we going to take in line number 2003? It is true. So what kind of value is true? Is it an int type data or float type or bool type or complex? It belongs to bool type. So let me execute line number 2003. So this will go and store in the object A, right? So let us focus on the variable explorer simultaneously. See, true got stored in the object A and the type that was used is bool. What is the size? It is just 1. Only one element we have inside A, object A. I'm going to print A along with its type. So this will result me true and bool. Good, good. Now, in line number 2005, are we performing typecasting or not? Are we performing typecasting or not in line number 2005? Yes, we are using int function and I'm passing a bool value inside it. Okay, so this will perform typecasting. Typecasting is performed where the true gets converted to an int value. So we know that internally true is identified as 1 and false takes 0, right? So when I execute line number 2005, in B it is going to store 1. Let me print it along with its type. You see, I got the value as 1 and the output as int. The type for the output is int. In the same way, it's your turn. I want everyone to respond for line number 2008 till 2011. What are we doing in line number 2008? We are going to store the value false. Yes, in the object A, done. So false got stored in the object A and the type that was used is bool. Then I'm just using print function to print the type along with the object, right? So this will print me false and the type as bool. Clear? Yep. So when we try to perform typecasting on the false type, okay, so which has stored using bool type data, okay, which used bool type to store the value false, and I'm going to perform typecasting on it using int of, okay, so converting a bool type data into integer data, int type, right? So this will return me 0. Good. So let me print the value that is present in B along with its type. So this will return me 0 and int. Clear? So far, we have converted the value, a float value into int type and a bool value to int type. Now let me convert a complex value, a complex type value into int type. What are we doing in line number 2014? In 2014, what kind of value we are going to store in the object A? What is it? It is a complex value, right? So complex type will be used to store the value which is present in the format of A plus Bj. I hope you remember, friends, right? So just focus. So 2 plus 3j is the value and complex type is used to store this value in the variable A. Good. Then just printing the value along with its type. So this will print me 2 plus 3j and the type is complex. Keep going, keep going. Then what are we doing in line number 2016? Int of A. I'm using int function to perform the typecasting. Okay, a complex type data is being converted to int type. Will it accept? No, it will not accept to convert a complex data into int type data. So this will result as an error. You see, a type error is what you see here. Can't convert complex to int. It will throw an error. Clear? Yes. Then what are we doing in line number 2018? 2018. What kind of value are we going to store in line number 2018? What is it? I'm going to store str type data, right? It helps us to store a sequence of values, sequence of characters. So 1, 2, 3 inside quotation marks. I'm going to store in A. Just have a look. Which type is used to store 1, 2, 3? It is str type. Good. Then what are we doing in line number 2019? I'm going to print A along with its type. So this will result me 1, 2, 3 and the type as str. Good. Keep going, friends. Then what are we trying to do in 2020? Line number 2020. I'm using int function. Yes. So I'm trying to perform typecasting. So trying to convert an str type data into int type value. Will it execute? Yes, it will execute. Right? So this will return me 1, 2, 3. An str type data can be converted to int type using int function. So let me also print it. Print the results to the console. Yes. We have the output as 1, 2, 3 and the type is int. And the type is int. Then coming to the next example, in the next case, I have str type data in which there is a float value. Is it an int value? No, it is a float value. How come? I see decimal values inside it. There are decimal values. So, but as the entire value is in quotation marks, right? So str type will be used to store this value. So let me execute line number 2023. I'm using str type to store this value 12.34. Okay, then printing using print function, I'm going to print A along with its type. So it will return as 12.34 and the type as str. It is not float, it is str because we have the value inside quotation marks. Then what are we trying to do? I'm using int function. I'm trying to convert a str type data into int type value. Will it execute or not? It will not execute. It will throw an error. Why? Inside the str, I mean inside the quotation marks, you have float type data. Right? So this, is this accepted? No, you'll get a value error. This is just because of the decimal values that you have in the str type. In the data, you have the decimal values. Then I'm going to take a complex type data inside quotation marks. So obviously str type will be used to store the data inside the object A. See, it will be str. It will not be any, complex. Why? Why it is not complex? Why it is str? Because I have the entire complex type data inside quotation marks. Focus. Right? So what is the size of this value? it is 2 plus 3j. But how it is 6? It also counts the spaces. 2 space plus space 3j. So how many characters in total? 6. That is how the length of the str type data gets calculated. Clear? Now, I'm going to print the object that we have, the value that we have in the object A, in the variable A along with its type, 2 plus 3j, and the type is str. So trying to convert an str type data in which we have a complex type value into int. Is it possible? No. Again, I'll get an error. The value error. Same. Yes. Making sense? Now, I'm going to store bool value true, but inside quotation marks. Right? So this becomes a str type data. An example for str type data. So I'm going to store it in the object A. Done. Then I'm printing A along with its type. So I have to get true and the class str. Trying to perform typecasting. So trying to convert an str type data in which we have bool type into int value, int type. Will it accept? No. You'll get the same output. So these are very important, friends. Then finally, anyhow, these two examples are same, but just taking a normal characters inside quotation marks. Okay, we had a sequence of characters inside quotation marks and trying to perform typecasting. Let me check, will it execute? Again, I have to get the same error. It will not execute. Why? Because how can a character be converted as an int value? Clear? Is it clear or not? Right. Now, I'll go to the next, next type in the sequence. It is float. We have understood all the cases in the int function. So we have understood each and every case, taking int function and performing typecasting. Now let me take float function and just perform the same typecasting activities. Right? So I'll take float function, and this float function helps us to convert any possible value into float type value. Okay, so the syntax is same. Just replace the function. Instead of int, use float. Because here we are trying to convert other types into float type. It might be int, bool, complex, or str. Whatever might be the type, I'm going to convert into float type. I'm going to start. So I have took a int type data. I'm going to store a value 10 inside an object A. Will it execute? Yes. I'm just following the syntaxes. So it will execute. So 10 is the value, type is int, and the variable is A. Then now I'm using print function to print the value A along with its type. So this will result me 10 and class int. Yes. Then what happens in line number 2047? What is happening in line number 2047? Float of A. So I'm using float function to perform typecasting. Okay. And on which type of data are we performing? It is 10. So what is the type? It is int. Int. So trying to convert a int type value into float type value. Will it execute or not? It will execute. So 10 gets converted to 10.0. and it gets stored in object B. You see here, 10 got converted to 10.0, and in order to store any value which is in decimal values, PVM uses the type as float. Okay, so just printing the output to the console, 10.0, and the type is float. Done. In the same way, what are we doing in the next case? The next example, 2051. We are taking a bool value and trying to convert into a float type. So performing typecasting. Okay. So storing a bool value true in object A. So is it done? Yep. Then printing the value that is present in A along with its type. So I have to get true and bool. Now I'm using float function. So this float function will help us to perform the typecasting where the bool value gets converted to a float type value. So what will be the output for line number 2053? In the previous case, when I used int function on a bool type data, okay, if I have performed on true, it became 1. If I have performed on false, the output is 0. Right? So for line number 2053, what will be the output? Exactly. Perfect. The output will be 1.0. Let me print it. So it became 1.0. Why? Because I'm using float function. Right? It is not int. Clear? Yes. Now, let me take a complex type value 2 plus 3.5j, okay, and store it in A. So it's a complex type value, and we have stored in the object A. Then printing the complex type value along with its type. So 2 plus 3.5j and the type is complex. Then performing typecasting using float function. I'm using float function to perform typecasting where a complex type data, will it get converted to float type data if I execute line number 2053? Yes or no? I'll get an error. It is not possible. No, we cannot convert a complex to float. The same error that we got in int. Can't convert complex to int. Can't convert complex to float. The same errors. Then, what are we doing in line number 2061? 2061. Trying to store str type data in which we have int value. Okay. So inside the quotations, which value do we have? We have 100, which is an int type value, right? So I'm going to store this str data in an object A. So you see here, done. Now I'm going to print A along with its type. So I have to get 100 and obviously the type is str. So when I perform typecasting, will this value 100, which is inside the quotation marks, will it be converted to float type? Good, good. It gets executed. The 100 becomes 100.0. Perfect. See. 100 became 100.0. So obviously the typecasting has been done successfully. Good. Now, what are we doing in line number 2066? 2066. So I'm trying to store a float type value, okay, inside str, inside the quotation marks. You see? Yes. So I'm going to store 12.34 inside the quotation marks. Obviously, it is an str type data. Okay. Then I'm going to perform typecasting on it. Anyhow, it is float type data, right? The value that we have in the quotation, it is float. Is it a float value? Yes, it is a float value. And you are trying to convert back into, str into float. Is it accepted? 2068. 12.34 S accepted. Let me print it. Done. It is accepted. It will not throw any error. Making sense? Now, storing a value true where we have this true value, a bool type value inside the quotation marks. Okay. So double quotation marks. So obviously str type will be used to store this value in the object A. Okay. So the type is str and the value is true. Now I'm going to print along with its type, the value and the type. So done. Using float function, I'm just using float function to perform the conversion. So will it execute or not? Line number 2073, where I have, a str type data in which we have a bool type value. Okay, if I try to convert this value into float type using float function, will it execute or not? 2073, good. It will not execute. It will throw you error. The same value error is what it returns. It will not execute. No. So that is why type conversions are very important. Okay. Then taking one more example of complex type value. Okay. Where we have them inside the quotation marks. So obviously str type will be used to store the complex value. Yes. -2 space minus space 3.4j. Okay. So because of all the spaces and the special symbols that we have, that is why the size became 9. Don't assume that we have only two parts here. Okay. So str type is being used. Each and every character present in the quotation marks it has length size of 1. Okay. So that is the reason we had the size as 9. Then I'm going to print A along with its type and finally performing typecasting using float function. So trying to convert a str type data in which we have complex data. Okay. So trying to convert this data into float. Will it accept? No. We cannot convert into float type. So it has to return the same value error. Couldn't convert string to float. Making sense? It is not just because of the str, the quotations. It also checks the value that is present inside it. See, when I have performed for int type data, it executed. For float type, it executed. For bool and for complex. When you have bool value and complex value inside str, inside the quotations, we got value error. We got value error. In the same way, respond for line number 2079. 2079. What are we doing? We are going to store a value Python, a sequence of values, sequence of characters, okay, inside the quotation marks. So it is obviously str type data. So the size is 6. And I'm going to print the value along with its type. Now, I'm using float function to perform the typecasting. Will it execute? No. How it come executes? It will not execute. What value it will return if it executes? Come on friends, I want the answers. How Python, a value like Python will be converted to float? So obviously I have to get the same value error here. It will not execute, it will throw us an error. Value error is what it returns. Could not convert string to float. How come a string str type data value gets converted to float? Good. Right. So let us start the next function. So we have completed int and float. Then the next one is bool. In the sequence, we have the next function as bool. So bool function is helping us to perform typecasting, and any type value can be converted to bool type using bool function. Okay. The syntax is same. Even the syntax, if you focus, so it might be int, float, complex or str, whatever might be the data, it helps us to convert the values into bool, right? And all non-zero values are true. So these are two important points that you have to make a note. So one is all the non-zero values are true and all zero values are false. Because in bool type, we just had only two values. What are they? True and false. So all the non-zero values are true and zero values are false. Okay, so just make a note of it. Now I'll start with examples. I'm trying to convert a int type value to bool type. Will it execute? Let us have a check. So I'm going to store a value 1003 in object A. Done. So using int type to store the value 1003, then printing the output to the console. Yes, only true and false is what we have. Then I'm going to use bool function. I'm going to use bool function and performing typecasting. Okay, so when I keep it as bool of A, where an int type value is getting converted to bool type. So what will be the output for line number 2093? Good, good. So is it a zero value or is it a non-zero value? It's a non-zero value. So obviously the output should be true. You see here? So typecasting has been done. And when we print it to the console, I should get the output as true and the type as bool. Now this time we have one more int value. Okay, so it is minus 234. So respond for this example, for this case. Will it execute for line number 2098? 2099, will it execute? It's a non-zero value. What kind of output we can have? We can expect in the console. Yes. So it's an int type data. So let me execute. Minus 234 got saved in the memory where int type will be used to store the value minus 234. Then printing the value to the console along with its type. Yes, it will execute. Why? Because we are trying to convert an int type data value into bool type and it executes. Since this value is non-zero, so the output should be true. Output should be true. See, the output for line number 2099, the output is true. And what is a class? I mean, what is a type? It is bool. Keep going, friends. Then let me check with 0 because we have understood that for all non-zero values it is true. But for 0 values, it takes the bool value as false. So let us cross check. I'm going to store a value 0 in the object A. Done. Then printing it along with its type. So the output should be 0 and an int. Then using bool function, I'm going to convert this int type value into bool type. Will it execute? Yes, it will execute. But the output will be false. The output will be false. Let me print the output to the console along with its type. So I see false. Why it is false? Because we are trying to convert a 0 value into bool type. What did we understand? All 0 values are false. Clear? So just had an understanding about how int type values get converted to bool type. Now let me go and check with float. How float type values gets converted to bool type. So I took a non-zero value 12.34 and getting storing in A. Done. I'm storing in A. It is done. Then printing the value A, the value that is present in A along with its type. So 12.34 and the type float gets printed. Then what are we doing in line number 2109? I'm using bool function to perform typecasting where a float value is being converted to bool type. Will it execute? Yes, because it is a non-zero number and all non-zero numbers take true. The Boolean value as true. So if I execute line number 2109, which Boolean value gets stored in B? It is true. Let me print it. The output is true and the type is bool. Making sense? Then I'm going to store a float value, but it's a zero value, 0.0. Is it a non-zero number? No. It is a 0, but which type will be used to store this value? It is float. Why? Because there are decimal values. There are floating values. So float type will be used to store the value. So again, it is an example of typecasting where we are trying to convert a float type value to bool. So just storing it in A. Then I'm going to print A along with its type. So the output should be 0.0 and the type will be float. Keep going. Now respond for line number 2114. What will be the output? The output will be false. Why? Because it is a zero value. It is not non-zero. So when you use bool function on this float value, it will return us the output as false. So let me print it. I see the output as false and the type is bool. Good. One more use case. Under the same category, let us also take one more use case, an example. Okay. So what am I trying to store? I'm trying to store a float type data, a float type value in A, but you see there are many zeros, 0, 0, 0, 0, so on. Then I have 1. Is it a zero value or non-zero value? It is a non-zero value. So let me store it. You see, 1 into 10 to the power minus 40 is what we have. And what type is used to store this value? Float. Let me print the results to the console. 1 e raised to the power minus 40. Good. It is a non-zero value. Now, I'm using bool function to convert this float type data into bool. Will it execute? Yes, it will execute and the output will be true or false. The output will be true. Perfect. The output will be true. So let me execute. We have the output as true and the type as bool. Done. Now comes the special case. Can we also convert this complex type data into bool? Yes. We can also convert the complex type data into bool. So let me take an example. A is equals to 2 plus 3j. So I'm going to store a complex type value in the object A, but what type of value it is? Is it a non-zero value or zero value? Obviously, I can see it is a non-zero value. So let me store it. Done. Okay. So complex type is used to store this value 2 plus 3j. Then printing the results to the console. I see the value and the type complex. Now I'm performing typecasting where bool function is used. Okay, so converting a complex value, complex type data into bool type using bool function. Will it execute? Yes, it will execute. And the output will be true. Why? Because it is a non-zero value. It is a non-zero value, and whenever you have non-zero values, it treats all the non-zero values as true. Let me print it. Yes. So this is a special case that you have to focus, because under int and float function, are we able to convert complex type data into int or float type? No, we got a value error. But when you are using bool function under the bool type, we are able to convert. Then in the same way, I'm going to store a zero value, 0 plus 0j, which is in the format of complex data. Okay, again complex type will be used to store this data. Let me execute. See, complex type is used to store it. Yes. Then printing it as it is with the type. Since it is a zero value, the output will be false when we perform typecasting using bool function. The output will be false. So let me print it. Yep, I see false. Clear? So you take a complex value or float value or int value. We can perform typecasting using bool function. All the different types of values can be converted into bool type using bool function. Good. Then the next case is, I'm going to take str type data in which I have a number 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to convert this into bool. Will it execute or not? So let us go and check. So let me store the str data, the sequence of values, then just printing it along with its type. Now I'm going to use bool function as part of type conversion. Okay, so this str type, whatever we have, the data inside which we have again a int type value. So this helps us to convert into bool type. So what will be the output? the output will be true. See, because it is a non-zero value. Clear? Then let me take one more str type data in which I have a float type value 12.34. Just printing the results. Yes, it is an str type data. Okay, str type is used to store this data and this is our data 12.34. Can we convert into bool? Yes, we are able to convert the float value into bool, right? So what will be the output for line number 2140? The output will be true again. Why? Because it is a non-zero value. Just remember those two lines. If it is zero value, the output will be false. If it is non-zero value, the output will be true. That's it. This time 0.0. Just trying to store 0.0 inside the quotation marks. So this is again a str type data. The size becomes 3. Okay. I'm going to print the results to the console. I'm using bool function. I'm using bool function to perform the typecasting. Okay. So what will be the output for line number 2145? The output will be false. Good. Why? Because it is a zero value. So the output will be. Why it is true here? Even though if it is 0, but still why it is true? This is the important question. Is it true or false? Because so far what happened? If it is a non-zero value, it will return true. If it is zero value, it return false. This is what we have learnt, right? So what is happening in line number 2145? So trying to convert a str type data into bool type. Yes, but I see the value as 0.0. So the output should be false, right? Why it is true? Interesting. Why it is true? I'm expecting answers. Okay. What happens if it is str type? So that it will return every time true or what? If it is str type, are we going to get every time the output as true? No. Then not exactly perfect. I got the answer. Friends, under str, okay, if you are trying to convert an str type data into bool, in general, we'll check whether it is a zero number or non-zero number, right? This is what we check. But what PVM does is, it will check whether it is an empty or non-empty string. Okay, it checks whether it is an empty or str type or non-empty str data. Is it empty? No, I have non-empty. It is an example of non-empty str data. I have the values. So whenever you have non-empty str data type, the output will be true. Isn't it? Let me check. See, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm trying to use bool function. The output is true. Let me print the length of A. The length is 3. What does it mean? It means there are 3 characters. It is not empty. It is non-empty. Okay. So point to be underlined. Under the str type, especially if you are trying to convert an str type data into bool, it checks whether there are values or not inside the quotation marks. Is it empty or non-empty? Okay, let us cross check on non-empty as well. What are we trying to do? I'm taking again an str type which have values. Okay, there are characters inside the quotation marks. Now, trying to print the values to the console. Then, using bool function, I'm performing typecasting. Then, printing the results, the output will be true. It has to be true. Why? Because it is non-empty. It is not empty, it is non-empty. Right? Then, what am I trying to do? Storing a value false. Okay, where we have it in the quotation marks. So that means again non-empty. So again the output should be true. Yes, I got the same output, true. Let me take quotation marks and don't keep any values. In line number 2159, I'm not going to keep any values. So I want everyone to be active here. So I'm going to store it. Which type is used? str type. Let me print the results to the console. I got the output and it is type as str. For line number 2161, where we are trying to perform bool, typecasting using bool function, the output should be, will it be false or true? It will be true again. It will not be false. Why? I don't have any characters, right? There are no values inside it. But why will it return true again? Because even if you have spaces, it considers as characters. Why the size is 4? There are 4 spaces. To cross check, let me do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Clear? Now I'll do it on empty, str data where we don't have any values. This time, you see, the size is 0 and I'm going to print it, the type and the value. I'll perform bool function on the str type data which does not have any values, the characters. So here the output will be false. Here the output will be false. Is it clear? So a special case that has to be noted under the bool type conversions, if you're working on str type data, okay, it checks for whether the data is empty or non-empty. Okay, within the quotation marks, do you have, the characters, the values, the sequence or not? One final example. So what will be output for line number 2172? Where I'm going to use NEUT, next era Unitech. Stored, the size is 4, obviously non-empty. So when I use bool function on it, when I try to perform typecasting using bool function, the output has to be true. The output has to be true. Pay attention, friends. So whenever you get some kind of interesting points, it's better if you make a note of them. Clear? Now let me go to the next type. It is complex. The fourth function that we have under the typecast conversion is complex. So this particular function complex, it helps us to convert any other possible type values into complex type values. Okay. So within the complex function, just pass the data. It might be int, float, bool, or str. Whatever might be the type, we can convert the type into complex. Yep. Okay. Now, what am I doing? I'm going to convert an int value to complex. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. So can you guess what will be the output for line number 2183? What will be the output for line number 2183? Complex of A, where I'm passing A value which is 10. What is the value that got stored in A? It is 10. An int type value. So can you guess what will be the output for line number 2183? Just do a wild guess, friends. That's fine. Exactly. The output will be 10 plus 0z. Okay. The output will be 10 plus 0z. And I'm going to print the results to the console. You see here, the conversion has been done. If you have an int value, that can be converted to complex type. Okay. So 10 got converted to 10 plus 0z. In the same way, what if I try to convert a float type value into complex? Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. So I'm going to store minus 2.3 in A, minus 2.3 in A. Okay. So what will be the output for line number 2189? When I try to perform typecasting using complex function, okay, on float type data, what will be the output? Exactly. Good. No, no, no. Minus 2.3 plus 0z. In the same way that we have got for int, in the same pattern, you'll have for float type as well. It will not split, friends. Yes, it is possible, and the output will be minus 2.3 plus 0z. Then I'm going to convert bool type into complex. So by this time, you should guess the output for line number 2195. Storing the value true in A, which is bool type. So what will be the output for line number 2195? Performing typecasting. It is possible. 1 plus 0z. Exactly. Because internally true is 1. It is recognized as 1. Then if I execute line number 2198, we are going to store the value false. We are going to store the value false, which is a bool type in A. Done. Now, what will be the output for line number 2200, where type conversion is being done? A bool type value like false, if I'm going to convert into complex type, what will be the output? 0 plus 0z. Exactly. Nothing but 0z. Right? So 0 plus 0z is nothing but 0z. Perfect. Then, coming to the next case, here from here onwards, we'll have the examples for str type. Okay. So within the str data, we have numbers. An int value is what you find here. So I'm just storing it in A. Then, can you expect the output for line number 2205? Will it be like 12 plus 0z or what? What will be the output for line number 2205? Exactly. Perfect. If you just identify the way that it is going to give you the output, So the output will be 12 plus 0z and the type will be complex. Then I'm going to come up with one more example where str type data is being used in which we have float value 12.34. Was converting this 12.34 str type data into complex. So what will be the output for 2210? 2210. Will it be 12.34 plus 0z? Yes, obviously the same. The same, friends. Okay. Then I have one more str type data. Okay, trying to store a bool value inside it. It is true. But this time, when you execute or when you try to perform typecasting, okay, using complex function, where this value true will it get converted as 1.1 plus 0z? Yes or no? You will get an error. You will not get the output. If it is just only the bool value, you will get the output as 1 plus 0z. But is this a bool value? What type is being used to store it? It is str type data. And complex function fails. You'll get a value error. You'll get a value error. Keep going, good friends. So anyhow, we have understood it here, right? So if you are going to use the same example, let me store Python. Okay, I'm going to print the results. Then using complex function to perform the typecasting, I'll get the same value error. That's it. Making sense? Good. So 4 functions were done. The last function is str. Okay, so we just had str function and the purpose of this function is to convert any type value into str type value. So just replace the syntax. In the same syntax, we use str function. Within, we pass the values. Either it might be int, float, bool, or complex. If you just pass the values, these values get converted to str type. Making sense? Right. So we know that it executes for all the types. Anyways, 3226, where we are going to store 100 and int value, int type value in A, then printing it. So what will be the output for line number 2228? str of A. So within the quotation marks, you'll have 100. So the typecasting can be performed. So it will be performed and the output is str. See. Yep, it performed on all the types, friends. Because if you have understood thoroughly in the previous examples, in all the cases under the str examples, we have int, float, bool, as well as complex. Right? So let me use a float type value, okay, and perform the conversion. So I just stored a float type value and I'm using str function to perform the conversion. So will it execute? Yes. So within the quotation marks, you have to get the output as 12.34. See, even in the variable explorer, you'll understand which type is being used, str, to store 12.34. Then what are we doing? I'm trying to store a bool type value in A. Done. Then just printing the results to the console. The value and the type done. Using str function, we are going to convert bool type value. We are trying to perform type conversion. Is it possible? Yes. So within the quotation marks, you'll have true. That's it. Very simple. It's very simple. Then the last example where we have a complex type value. Okay. So 2 plus 3.6g. I'm storing it to an object. Then I'm going to print the results. Yes. Using str function, we are going to store this complex value. Okay. So will it execute? Yes, it will execute. And we can store the complex type data within the quotations, right? So that is possible. So the type conversion is, it will not throw any error and it will result the output. Done. Clear? Right. So this marks the end of type conversion. Now we quickly understand, the opportunities that we provide. Next era Unitech provides. Okay. So just focus, friends. What exactly is next era Unitech? In next era Unitech, we provide or we focus on comprehensive training programs. Okay. Especially wherever we have the training programs, whatever are emerging in the market, like data analytics, data science, AI, under these programs, we train multiple students. Under each and every batch, we also ensure that interactive learning is performed. Okay, so we'll have live sessions. Then for the sessions, we'll also have hands-on practice. Whatever we deliver as part of the session, it has to be practiced, right? Even this is ensured that will be done. Then followed by the projects for each and every, topic that we discuss. We'll bring in real world scenarios for each and every topic, and we'll be discussing all of them in the class. And this particular courses are designed for all level of students. Okay, either it might be beginners or advanced learners. Even if they are experienced, they can join us. Okay, and they can upskill. And in which courses we also do train for tools is, we provide trainings on Python, SQL, Power BI, Tableau, Excel, even ML and AI. Okay, so under all these different courses, we'll be delivering our sessions. So this is a quick introduction about Next Era Unitech. Okay, so we also offer internships. This point you have to make a note, because for every 2 weeks we'll be starting a new batch. And if you want to be part of an intern, okay, if you want to be working as an intern under this program, you have to be registering with us. And these are free. Not even a single rupee is being charged for internship. Right? Yes. Then, in the market, wherever you see, the one word that you are listening is Python. Why someone should learn Python? Why one should learn Python? Wherever you go, the tech giants, the big companies, they use Python. Yes. And Python being very simple, because of these friendly syntaxes, beginner friendly syntaxes, everyone started learning it. Everyone started implementing it to bring versatile applications. Whatever might be the application, we can use Python for building it. And Python helps us to come up with extensive packages. There are multiple libraries inside it. Okay, so because of this, Python became very famous and everyone started using Python. And when it comes to the job, there is a lot of demand, huge demand, right? So because of this huge demand in the market, again, everyone started learning Python. Okay, so there are multiple features why one should learn Python. If that you have a general question, if you have, you know, in order to be part of any company, especially it might be IT or even non-IT. Okay, I'll just talk about the different domains. Even in other domain companies, they are implementing Python to build their to maintain their sites. Okay, so probably here the career opportunities in what if you learn Python? How are the career opportunities? You can be part of development team, or you can also stick to the data team, engineering. Okay, where we have ML engineer, AI engineer. Under the data science, we have analyst, scientist. All of these people, they learn Python. What they use? They use Python. Okay, if not, you can also work as freelancer. Yes, whatever might be your role, especially if you are a developer, one software, one language that you should be very familiar, okay, is Python. And there is lot of demand in the market. Okay, even I'll talk about the salaries, right? Then coming to the domains, you see, whatever might be the domain, okay, e-commerce, retail sector, okay, then gaming platforms, healthcare, pharma industries, edutechs, okay, finance and banking sectors, manufacturing, automobiles, whatever might be, the domain, everyone started using Python, friends. Yes. So there is lot of demand in the market. We have lot of demand. If you learn Python, yes, you can stick to any domain. It doesn't mean that you have to work only in IT. No, not only in IT. Whatever might be the domain, you can go and still go and work there. Right? Again, the question rises. I'm not from computers or IT background. That's okay. That's fine. Why don't you learn Python and be part of this amazing, domains? Is it very easy? Yes, it is very easy. But you should also put some kind of efforts. These two slides probably everyone will like, because here I'm going to discuss about salaries. At the end of the day, whatever we do, we need a kind of satisfaction. So when you look at this amount, the figures that we have here, you'll get the satisfaction. If you learn Python, you can be a data scientist. Yes. You can be a Python developer. Yes. So within India, these are the salary ranges. So I'm just not splitting them. If you start from beginner or intermediate, a fresher, or you know, even if you have experience, here we have the ranges. The ranges we have for a Python developer in India, okay, in our country, for a beginner, it is going to start at 4 LPA. And depending on the experience, yes, salaries keep on increasing. Okay, in the same way for data scientist. But for all these, what is a common point? It's Python. Python is a primary skill that interviewers are looking at, in the resume. A web developer, an analyst, ML engineer, AI engineer, automation engineer. Okay. So what do they use? They use the programming language Python. And it's up to you guys. What you want to be? No, I'm not going to just influence you, but learn Python is what my advice. My advice is learn Python. Why? There is a lot of demand. Like how AI is grabbing the attention In the same way, Python is also attracting the world. Why? Because of multiple features that Python has, being a very easy programming language, everyone started learning it and they're able to achieve the packages. Okay. Anyways, what if you're also planning abroad? Not in India, assume. Are the salaries very high in abroad? Too high. Not very high, it's very to the sky. Okay. And all these numbers, all the figures are not written in random. We have captured it from, the sites. Okay. Even you can Google it, friends. When you do research, you'll find the same figures. See, lot of demand. Yes. But Python should be known must and should. Must and should, you should be aware of programming language. That is Python. Okay. For building all these applications, the programming language that is being used is Python. Okay. So clear. Anyways, I'll not talk about each and every figure. Okay. I'll not prove it. Anyhow, you can, whenever you're free, just go and have a look. Is it really paid? In Europe, is it 45K to 80K euros? Yes, it is. Okay. So the importance of Python is what we are discussing. Okay. So this is the important slide where I have to extensively stick and talk about, because if you are going to join our Python program, okay, so we have the roadmap. We have the roadmap. Okay. So in our Python program, we are going to cover both core and advanced. Core and advanced Python will be covered along with the packages like NumPy and Pandas. We'll also talk about the important packages. We'll be learning the important packages. Okay. So here we have all the list of topics that we are going to cover. Okay. Oops. Then we have functions, modules, exceptional handling, files. What is the cost of this program that we are going to charge? In general, it will be 8,000, my friends. In general, it is 8,000. But we are going to just offer you for 2,000. Okay. So this particular offer will be only for the next 1 week. Okay. At least you can register. You can book your slot by just paying a minimal amount of 100 rupees. Okay. So why am I asking you to complete your registration is, now whatever you are learning as part of the sessions, probably you are learning, you are listening, and you're just moving on. But if you are being part of our course, we ensure that you perform hands-on practice. Then coming to the script, okay, we also provide you the source code. The source code will be provided. Then we also have other benefits. I'll talk about all of them, okay, in the coming slides. But here we have each and every topic. This is more than enough. If you are a fresher, okay, even if you're a person who have a mid-level of experience, if you are good at all these topics, why don't you get a job? Is it that much tough? No, no. To be honest, majority of the people working in the real world, they don't know these topics. No. Right? So I hope it's making sense. So once if you are learning all these topics and if you perform hands-on, why can't we get a job? We got the skill, right? If you are skilled, who is not stopping us to get a job? So just question yourself, right? Right. Then why you have to choose, Nextera Unitech? If you have the question, we provide 100% placement assistance. It is genuine. Okay. We provide 100% placement assistance. And the second or the primary point that I have to tell is very, very, very affordable prices. Just think of who is going to provide this Python program at 2000. At just 2000, you're going to complete, you're going to just cover all the topics, core and advanced topics in Python for just 2000. Think of. Okay. Then you'll also have an alternate trainer, a backup trainer will be assigned. Apart from trainer, you'll also have a backup trainer support. So if you are facing any issues, so our alternate trainer will be assisting you wherever you got stuck. And you'll also get certification post you are completing the course with us. And this will be 1 year validity. You'll have 1 year validity for the course, but there are some points to be discussed. Important points. What if I am pursuing first year graduation? Okay, so I'm just pursuing graduation and I'm in first year. So probably I cannot opt for the course. Yes, why? I also have semester exams. I have mid exams. So probably what do you think? You may assume that after completing your graduation, you will generally opt for this course, right? But for you people, keeping all you people in your mind, we have come up with some important points. So all these points are for you, friends. If you are pursuing, first year graduation, and if you have opted the course in next era Unitech, you'll have the access for, all the years till you complete your graduation and till you get a job, you'll have the assistance. Okay, you can join our classes for n number of times. So whenever you have exams, you can take a break and come back. Even the same thing applies for second years, third years, and fourth years. So we are taking the responsibility. We are taking the responsibility of you. Okay, so just keeping all these things in the mind, we have came up with these things. And we ensure hands-on learning to be done, because not just listening to the sessions, right? From day one, I was telling you, hands-on is must and should. It is a programming language, right? What if you don't practice? Okay, so we are here and we'll be focusing whether you are practicing or not. So we'll be taking care of each and every student that whoever joins next era Unitech, and we ensure quality training. This particular point I need not discuss more, because the crowd itself, whatever the feedback that we are getting from you, that is more than enough. Then coming to the sessions, all of them will be live interactive sessions, and we'll also provide projects. Once if you are done with the course, we'll provide projects, and keeping these projects will make you ready for the interviews. So just think of all the points and take your decision wisely. If someone asks you why you should choose next year Unitech, what is making you to choose NUT? These are my points, friends. And just tell me, is there the best place where you get the better points more than this? Obviously, no. Just think of, and I'll just, go, because I have to move, right? So Python, this is wonderful line that I have found. The one language and endless possibilities, huge possibilities. Okay, so we are going to learn Python from scratch. Whoever might be the student, whatever might be the domain they come from, the background, irrespective of the background, they'll be learning from scratch. Right. So I'll also introduce the other courses, because I have a set of other courses as well. let us listen to the other courses. Then I'll take up your questions at the last. We also provide courses on data analytics, data science, AI. Okay. So coming to data analytics, what modules are we going to learn? We'll be starting with Python again. That is what we have understood, right? Python is the common language, common module that will be taught in all these courses. Okay, Python will be covered, then followed by a project management methodology called CRISP MLQ. Okay, for each and every project that we do in real time, there should be a methodology, there should be a flow that will be learned as part of, the second module. Then EDA, a data analysis process, exploratory data analysis. How the analysis to be done on the data will be understood here. Then followed by SQL, structured query language. Okay, so why we have to learn SQL is because we have the data in DBMS, right? Databases. In the databases, we'll have the data. So in order to communicate with the databases, we need SQL. So that will be taught, followed by a BI tool. So a data analyst has to create these dashboards and reports, right? So a BI tool will be learned, and in trending we have Power BI. So Power BI will be covered, and next to it we'll also have advanced Excel. So the advanced topics in Excel will be covered. Okay, and in all the cases you'll have assignments, projects, mock interviews and real interviews. Okay, so this will be the flow. Okay, again the question raises, anyhow, if I register for Python, only for Python, again I have Python, right? In data analytics, I have Python again. So am I going to pay for twice? No. So I assume that if you have paid, or if you have completed your payment of, or if you have learned Python with us for 2000, we are going to reduce this amount if you are also going to pursue data analytics. So this amount will be deducted from the data analytics part, and the rest of the amount, if you pay, that is more than enough. Okay, so that means, so in general, we charge for data analytics, it is, it 40,000. But as an offer, we are providing it for 20,000 only. So that means 2,000 will be reduced. You'll get data analytics at 18,000 only. At just 18,000, you are going to get the entire data analytics course. But, there is a constraint. You should also learn Python in NEUT, not outside. Because we don't guarantee you that all the concepts that will be covered, the same concepts, if you're learning somewhere else. I hope it's clear. Only if you are learning the Python in NEUT, that amount will be deducted. Just make a point. So who is going to do all these things? I don't think so. Right? So no one on the planet is going to do all these things. Just we started NEUT as a service-based company. Okay. So we are providing the courses, the emerging technologies, whatever we have at low cost. Ensure quality training. The quality training has to be maintained. So this is what our aim. And we are going to come up with multiple programs in future. As time being, we are focusing on the emerging technologies like data analytics, science, data science, and AI. Right? So let me also discuss the other courses. So under data analytics, this is what happens. The modules that we are going to cover, we have here. The duration will be for 3 to 4 months. And 2 projects we are going to cover under data analytics program. And we'll also get certificates. For each and every individual module, you'll get certificate. For projects, you are going to get certificates. And for the course completion also, you'll get the certificate. Then under data analytics, we also have one more program where Tableau will also be covered. So the same modules, whatever we have discussed prior, all the modules will be covered as it is. But what is the difference? One more BI tool. Apart from learning Power BI, Tableau will also get covered. So again, you take a decision. Either you want to opt for data analytics or data analytics with Tableau. Okay, the same. So this we'll discuss. Okay, either you want to opt for Power BI where we have only under data analytics or both. So can you tell me this? All the companies will they use only Power BI? No, right? So obviously they also use the other tools, the other important BI tools. So in the market we have Tableau and Power BI as the leading BI tools, business intelligence tools. Okay, so if you learn both, you'll have wide opportunities. If not, if you just want to learn Power BI, just enroll for data analytics. So compared to the opportunities that you get here, there the number of opportunities get reduced. That's it. I hope it's making sense. Right? Now let us go and understand. Okay, before that, data analytics with Tableau program, it will be around for 4 to 5 months. Okay, and the projects are two. You'll be working on two projects. And for each and every module, you'll get the same certificates, course completion certificate, and for the projects. Right? Now let me talk about the data science program. If you see under data science program, again the same module still here. Python, methodology, CRISP-MLQ, EDA, SQL, and Power BI. But from here onwards, we'll understand ML. Machine learning, where we'll be understanding multiple algorithms. In real time, we'll be using around 20 to 30 algorithms. And these algorithms will be learned as part of our sessions. For each and every algorithm that we, understand, we'll also come up with a use case. So it's a kind of mini project. Yes, for each and every algorithm. Okay, so once if you are completing your course, you can register for data scientist. You can be a data scientist in real time. What does a data scientist does? A data scientist is a person who should be aware of Python, SQL, and ML as well as AI. AI is also required. Okay, so that particular AI will be covered in the next program, guys. Okay, the same concepts, along with the same concept, you'll have the next module that will be AI. Okay, so I'll go back. The next slide. So data science program will be around for 5 to 6 months. Okay, number of projects that we do are 3. For each and every module, you'll get the certificates for the projects and the course completion. Okay, what if you also want to learn Tableau? If you want to include Tableau in the data science, so the same modules, but additionally you'll have Tableau. That is the only difference. So I'm not concentrating more on this, particular slide. So when it comes to data science with Tableau program, you'll have the duration for 6 to 7 months, and the number of projects that we work on are 3, and the same certificates. So this is the important course because, AI is leading, it is grabbing the attention, right? So my advice will be taking up this course if you are actually interested, because where you will be learning all the topics. See, machine learning along with DL. Okay, whatever the algorithms that are in trending are ML, but compared to ML, we have a lot of huge trend for DL, deep learning algorithms. Okay, so that will be covered only in this particular course. Apart from this course, in no other courses, DL algorithms will be covered. I hope it's making sense. Right? And finally, if I want to talk about this particular course, the duration will be 7 to 8 months. The projects that we work are 4. The certificates will be same. Making sense? Then finally, the same slide, why you have to choose annuity, the same points. Okay. So we provide 100% genuine assistance. Okay. And you'll also understand it. It depends on your efforts. If you're paying enough amount of, if you're coming up with good efforts, if you're investing your time, and if you're working hard, then obviously we ensure that you get a job. Then followed by the projects, affordable prices. So very important. No one in the market is providing you the courses at this cost. No one. Seriously. You can also, if they are providing, just go and compare the topics. Okay. I'll be providing you the topics that we deliver, and you can also compare the topics that wherever you get these at the same price. Obviously, we stand at the top. Okay. So that is where we come into the picture. Why you have to choose Nextera Unitech? We have all the points. Right. So whatever were being discussed are the programs that we actually conduct, the training sessions that we conduct in Nextera Unitech. Okay. So if you're actually looking out for the genuine place where you learn, where you can upskill. So on daily basis, we are providing a feedback link, right? So in the feedback link, there are 2 questions. But before that, let me show you one more thing. So friends, when you open the feedback link, you'll also find the prices for each and every course. Okay. So we have 2 months course and 2.5 months. It depends on the number of hours per day. Okay. So in general, we have data analytics for 40,000, but as an offer, we are reducing it to 50%. So you have to just pay only 20%. I mean, 20,000 is enough, where you will be learning the entire modules. Okay. Again, if you learn Python first, if you're learning Python initially, okay, then if you're also willing to learn data analytics, that amount gets reduced. Not only for DA, even for other courses also, because in all the courses I have, okay, in all the other courses also I have Python. But in the next course, data analytics with Tableau, we have the fees as 50,000 but reduced to just 50%. 25,000 is enough. For data science, it is 30,000. Data science with Tableau is 35,000. And if you are willing to learn AI, just within 40,000, you'll be completing your entire program. Just think and take a wise decision. That is what I want to say here. And, on daily basis, especially today, whatever the feedback link that is going to get shared, I want you guys to give a genuine answer for these questions. Okay. For the question, for this particular question, the job oriented industry standard paid course, whether you are interested in taking up any course, just select the right one. And for the Python as well, we are also going to soon start a program on Python where core and advanced topics will be covered. Okay. So if you are interested, just click on yes. If not, no. But be genuine. I want the real answers, because once if you have kept yes, the team will start calling you. Okay. So we don't want to disturb the other guys, right? So the offer price, it is just only 2,000 friends. At 2,000, you're going to learn the entire Python. Okay. Compared to, the core and advanced with 2 packages, NumPy and Pandas. Right? So you can also click on this link to be part of the community, the WhatsApp community, where we have, the core and advanced Python course. Okay. At least you can also pay an initial amount as a part of token, and you can be part of the course, the sessions, the paid courses. Right? So that is what I want to say here. And if you have any kind of questions, yes, please do ask them. And if you don't have any questions, yes, we'll be providing you the feedback link. Just provide the genuine answers. I hope it's making sense. Right? Yes. So the feedback link has been posted. Give your feedback before you leave. And I hope the session went well. Right? Yep. Thank you, guys. Yeah, we are also providing internships. We'll be posting them soon. That is what, be part of our channel. If you are part of our channel, Nextera Unitech, you'll get all the updates, my friends. You'll get all the updates. No, currently we are not providing any courses on electronics. Soon we'll be launching. We'll let you know. What is the problem? You have to get right. If you are attending the classes every day, you have to get the feedback link. I hope everyone have provided your feedback. Right. So let us meet in the next session. Thank you so much, friends, for joining today. I want to enroll for Python course. Yeah, just click on yes. We'll discuss. What we have to do, we'll discuss. Clear? You can keep the option as yes, my friend. Okay. Accordingly, we'll discuss. Right. So we'll meet in the next session. Until then, take care. Have a great day. Signing off. Bye.